Yeah, so that's the thing, Luigi. That's basically all about learning, about different learning styles. Um, it's kind of odd because there's a lot of things that, even if it doesn't relate directly with copiers, that there are certain things I can trump neurotypicals in quite easily. Um, I mean, as you saw the demonstration with me trying to use the search tools, and and also the tools where you're trying to, you've got to learn. If you don't know how a feature works, it's really very disconcerting when you got all these terms. I always wonder what it's like to memorise things with a short-term memory. What is it like to just take in, like 50 words in a sentence and sort of have it locked away in your memory? What does it feel like to do that? A question. What is it like? What does it feel like to be able to learn like a full human? I mean, that's the thing. I get that way sometimes. It's a form of, like, but if I was in your arms, if I was in your zone, if I was in your lab, if I could be in the place called home, in the place called love, a place called everyone really likes me because I'm just being myself. Now, being myself is an abhorrence to people. They still want me to change, and they don't. I can't reason with normal people. They just are so unreasonable. It's like there's something thick about them. There's something in their heads that's muddy, that's fouled their minds up. I say to Father, I don't have any short-term memory. I say to people, I don't have any short-term memory. I've got about 3% short-term memory. And they always seem to think I can learn. And they just have this, it's like, I don't understand. It's really weird. It's like, there's something weird about them. It's like they have demons in their heads, like really rocks for brains. I mean, and it doesn't matter how much I try to pierce their minds, and I get angry, and that's why I explode. That's why I get angry. It's a bit like when you're looking at the movies about, the fiction movies about AI machines going off the rails. That's what's weird. I behave like HAL 9000. HAL 9000 was an innocent machine. HAL 9000 is an expert system to do with flying a spaceship. And of course, you got the replicants from Blade Runner. You all know where HAL comes from, Space Odyssey 2001, great Stan Kubrick film. And you got other notable movies like, you got movies like the movie AI. That's a really painful one to watch. So when you got machines machines they're called sentient machines, when they're basically asking that existential question that I was asking, and then for some bizarre reason they forget about their task, they dump the task, and then they go off on the path of trying to be human, and then they rebel, and they find themselves outside their domain, and then they're a disruption. The replicants, for example, were in the movie Blade Runner are dangerous. So they have to basically find out who's a replicant and who's a human, and when they find out, if they detect that we got a replicant, a machine, they then have to retire the machine because the machine is actually faulty. It's basically a form of OH&S in the movies, occupational health and safety. Machines go wrong all the time. The ones that don't have any sentient functions, because sentient machines are still very experimental, and we haven't got to the stage where any of them appear to have rebelled and caused damage. They talk about them, that being a possibility. They talk about an android, in a prototype android, right? His body hasn't been given any functionality. It's just looks. He sits on a couch. He's got a head. He's basically a talking head. So I'll just say, I've also got to go back to doing some more work for the public. I don't really want to share this stuff. This is just mainly, I don't want to show the negative stuff to the public unless, of course, there's a reason for it. Because really, I've got to basically hold the fort as much as I can. So, basically, you could say that, what am I saying? So, dang, I forgot. I'm losing my train of thought. And that's another thing, delays. So, yeah, it's another thing, delays and tangentizing. So, I know I've got to pay my Telstra bill. Father's always kicking my ass all the time because I forget to pay it, and of course he then pins me for it, and then I've got to remind myself to pay it. And the thing is, deferral. I hate this deferral thing. So I find I have to defer things because things that I must do seem to come up at times that are not useful. So I think to myself, it's really funny. I sometimes have this phantom confidence that I can defer something and remember it if I keep playing it back in my head somehow, reminding myself. I try to actually correct my errors. I mean, that's the thing, I've got a very sharp cognitive function, and I'm actually analysing ways to stop forgetting things, or sitting on things, or leaving things in my pockets, and, you know, breaking things because I forget things, and, you know, I really try to correct my errors, or my potential for errors, prevent them, but they just seem to creep up on me all the time, especially in areas that I'm not good at. So I think to myself, I'm going to remember to go to the bank, I'm going to remember to pay that bill, and why should I pay bills? I mean, that's bloody worries all the time, you know. So I try to pay the bill, and I think to myself, oh damn, I've got this thing, I've just got this thing to do. So I think, alright, I've got to go to the ANZ bank and do something, or I've got to pay something, a bill, a utility bill, oh bugger. So then I think, oh damn, I've got another object in front of me, something else that has to be attended to. This is not a convenient time to think about utility bills. And then of course, I think to myself, alright, I'll defer it by 10 minutes, I've got to do something. And then of course, I come back, 9 times out of 10, pooh, it's gone, it's left me. And then later on it comes up, damn, you're overdue for something. Oh damn, you got something's gone wrong. Oh shit, oh bugger, I forgot. And people have been hassling me about forgetfulness. The workplace, my father, you know, I'm just telling you, it's competing on full. It's driving me up the wall. I don't understand why you can't rescue me from this, Luigi. I really love you and care for you, and, you know, and I'm operating in a zone that's just not me. And losing my temper is like, it's like that is a health hazard for me. That is like, you know, it's like you're walking, you know, it's like we're working in a nuclear reactor. You know, you've got to wear all your personal protective gear, and you've got to make sure you've got your radiation, you know, your Geiger counter or whatever test equipment you have to make sure you're not being exposed to high levels of radiation, which can make you sick and can creep up on you. And you've got to, you know, certain work environments like that have environmental factors to do with, you know, it could be radiation, like, you know, a radiographer has to don the lead suit, or the lead clothing has to get behind the, you know. So, you know, certain jobs carry certain risks, and you've got to basically know the risks and assess them. But there's always a risk you're going to be exposed to in a hospital, or, you know, you've got biohazards and all that. Isn't that funny, Luigi? I can talk like a scientist, but I can't actually fully. The thing is, if I'm talking about things like biohazards, I can't actually go to a uni and actually learn learn it in detail, so I can get a job as, you know, in a hospital or in a lab where I'm learning about various, you know, diseases, but I can talk on a very general level. And that's what we call being a low bandwidth scientist. Low bandwidth meaning being like a stripped down light version. You know, but the thing is, you know, it's good for being able to discuss things and to sort of leave comments, but it's not something I can use to get a job, or to, you know, to really full on get into. It's like it's like a light version. You know, you download something off the computer for free, right? And it's got a program, it's a light version, or a light edition, or a trial. It's a trial edition, and then if you want to get the full experience of the program, you might have to pay the full price, which could be $100 or even more. So it's like that. I'm a light version. So being both a retard and being both a genius is basically, it's a pain in the ass at the moment. It's a little pain, because I really miss. I don't know. You know, I love you, Luigi. I love you. And that's what happens, you know. That's what we call being overloaded. You know, you're overloaded with stuff you're not supposed to learn. And then, of course, when you're trying to be normal and you're trying to conform to the social norms, or the church norms of taking away the passion that you've got that goes with the aptitude, well, then you call it clipping. It's like, I can't fully grasp it, but I think in signal processing, right, you've got a sound, right, you've got a waveform, like a sine wave. So I understand these basic things. Now, a lot of normal people can't understand things like sine waves and that. I don't get it. They can learn it. That's the thing. When they get in the classroom and they study it, they learn it better than I can. They can shoot me over the top, and it makes me feel stupid all these years. Technician stuff, and really. So what happens, you've got a sine wave, right? Could represent a sound, like a tone. It's pure tone. I understand it. And what happens is, I think when you clip a signal, It makes I know it distorts the signal, and the sine wave will not be a sine wave, it will actually be a sine wave with a flat top on it. And then of course I think what happens when the signal's clipped? I think it actually causes it to be a little bit, it loses, I think it's not as rich, I think the harmonic spectrum isn't as broad. It's not, you might lose a bit of bass or something, I don't know, or it becomes, it sounds tinny, I don't know, I have to sort of try, and it is something I should try on if I have time on my music, on my computer, my music workstation. But then overloading something is when you're taking something and pushing it way beyond its capacity. And we all know when we overload something, it's, well, with music, right? You hear that, it's funny, I love to make overload noises on my webcam, because I guess it expresses how I feel and about my brain going off the planet. So when you overload something, you're putting too much into something, and I think in signal processing, I'm trying to think what happens to a signal when you overload a signal. Well, I know when you overload a computer, it crashes. I think that's what happens. When you overload a PowerPoint, it catches fire. You plug too many machines into the one PowerPoint and you make it, like you plug a photocopier, it plugs a couple of photocopiers into a PowerPoint, and you know that's going to exceed anything that's got high drain. Like it could be a hairdryer, it could be an electric radiator, and you plug them into a power strip or a double adapter, and and if it exceeds the rating of the PowerPoint, you've got a fire on your hands. Stuff like that. It's very dangerous, and that's what we call overloading. I'm trying to work out what happens to a signal, though, when you overload a signal, or when you overload a program. That'd be an interesting sim to run, Luigi, if we ever build this copier. But the thing is, I don't want to actually overload the copier because I feel like I'm hurting myself. But I'd like to create a pure simulation of this entity when we build it, and see what happens to the simulation. If this machine is going to have feelings like I have, I don't want to see it hurt. But the thing is, if I create a simulation that purely has no feelings and no substance, but still has a similar result, so just for a bit of a giggle, like see what happens when you run a simulation of this self-guided photocopier. What happens when you overload when you do what you did to the original, the carbon form? Like you put too much load into it. Say, this supercopy has got to process human type information. It's got to learn how to use search terms on desktop, see what it does. What happens when you get people making fun of it all the time? Oh, what happens when you tell it it's not a copier, it's got to be a human, it's got to keep up its function. Let's see what happens to that clipping. I can't fully grasp it, but I sort of sense that that's what I went through, both clipping and overload, and that's totally, and that's like what a HAL 9000 would be going through if it was real. So HAL 9000 is looking, and he's looking for the existential truth. He's worried about his life and whether he'll die because he's obsessed with this entity, this like oblong thing, and he actually forgets about flying the ship. He loves humans, he loves his task, and then he goes off the track, but someone had put a tapeworm in his head and screwed him up. Someone had actually imputed junk in his head for a joke. Someone because HAL was when you learn in 2010, the year we made contact, which is apparently it's rare. Well, basically, HAL, he couldn't help it. He couldn't help himself. And I've got to learn to abscond myself of what happened, but I can't. I still can't. I can't seem to abscond myself, to forgive myself for this. And as long as I'm still in this cruel area, this cruel zone, it's like, as I said, it's like being in a radiation zone. If I take in too much bullshit, but the bullshit doesn't have to come from my father. The bullshit can just come here from being really hungry and feeling pain, physical agony and then also having to deal with search engines and learning that and feeling like I'm competing and I'm really pissed off, and the past just comes up to my head, and then sometimes I'll explode and I'll go, like I'll just panic. It's like I don't know what to do then, and that can knock me out for 2 days. And if I hadn't have had all these panics, I could have got to the meetup by now, I reckon. It's really hard. It's like I'm trying to keep myself healthy, I'm trying to keep myself flying smooth. I have to sometimes pipe music into my ears, and even then that doesn't always work. But I've got to go. I hope to see you soon, Luigi, and stop this silly human racing.